Canadians watched on Thanksgiving Monday as the city of St. John, New Brunswick was rocked by a massive explosion and fire at the Irving oil refinery near the center of town. Firefighters gained control of the fire, but only after the evacuation of the refinery. Several workers were slightly injured, and the refinery has been shut down to allow an investigation of what happened. All of which has the mayor of St. John calling for a wider discussion of incidents like this one and how to minimize the risks. The refinery sits very close to the heart of town. Don Darling is the mayor of St. John. He joins me now. Mayor Darling, thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Okay, as I say, right now as we speak, things are stabilized and they are looking into what caused this explosion and fire. But you said that this gives pause for a discussion about the wider concerns of how to avoid incidents like this. What kind of concerns does this raise for you?
Well, 24 hours ago, we were still in the midst of a major event here in our city. We have the largest industrial base east of Montreal, so it's not that's not new to us, being an industrial city, and we're grateful for the economic benefits that exist, but it goes broader than that. So post-event, I think we need to have as you've quoted me in saying, a comprehensive review of our emergency preparedness plans, our response to this particular event itself. We need to look at, in particular, our communications. There was, as you can imagine, a lot of panic in the city yesterday during this event, and we need a broader discussion in terms of and a rebalancing of the relationship between the industrial players here in our city and our citizens, and of course our city operations. So this is an event that we're grateful no one was killed. We're thankful to our emergency responders, paramedics, fire, police, EMO, but now we must have a broader and comprehensive discussion about incidents like this. This has not been the only incident in St. John in the last year or two. They're becoming far too frequent. You
mentioned communications. What was the problem with communications? You weren't getting enough from the Irving company, from the company that was running the refinery?
Yeah, look, this event happened at 10:15. We responded, what our chief of EMO would say, boots on the ground, in to assess operationally. But as you can imagine, citizens live in a communications world now that is immediate, with social media, texting, Twitter, Facebook. So I think we got a bit behind. I mean, we'll do a review. And I think in the absence of us discussing specifically what people can expect from us in terms of communication, there's going to be a gap. So my commitment to the citizens of this city is that we'll do a review and we'll look for opportunities to improve in all areas: communication, emergency preparedness, emergency response. And again, I think we need to rebalance these relationships.
Okay, in rebalancing that relationship, do you see any need for regulation or legislation? Like, I'm thinking maybe of the provincial or federal role in this. Is there anything that you think maybe speaks to need for more regulations or legislation?
Well, look, we'll make sure that we have the right people around the table. Municipalities in this country, or in this province for sure, are creatures or children, if you will, of the province. So we rely heavily on provincial governments and federal regulators. So I'm sure they'll be completing their own review and will want to be at the table. We are the closest to these industrial assets and most impacted. We're a city that financially is very challenged in terms of our sustainability, trying to grow, trying to be a fantastic place to live, work, and play. And when you show footage like you're sharing right now on your screen, the ability for us to do that is impacted. So the right players should be around the table, but I want to make sure that this municipality's voice is loudly and clearly heard, and that we're working through this and coming up with a defined new relationship as we move forward.
A lot of people who are not from the province were surprised to know that this massive refinery is more or less in the town. I mean, it's just adjacent to your downtown core in St. John. Right. And a lot of people do know, though, that this refinery, for example, the Irving refinery in St. John, would have had a huge increase in volume if the Energy East pipeline had have gone ahead. There is talk about trying to revive that project, so there's a whole federal and Canada-wide implication. That would have meant that this refinery would have taken a far greater volume. It's already the largest refinery of its sort in Canada. Right. Does that also speak to the need for more regulation, say federal regulation, and more monitoring if you're having increasing number of incidents and there's a potential that you'll be increasing volume going to that refinery?
Yeah, look, I can't speak to the gaps in, if there are gaps in regulation today. What I can tell you is that on issues like emergency preparedness, when Chief Kevin Clifford, with more than 40 years of experience, who's the head of St. John EMO, when he says he's satisfied with the emergency preparedness plan, then I'll be satisfied. If there are gaps, we could address those gaps. The city of St. John, I think, largely was moving toward an unconditional support of a project like Energy East. I'm pro-business. I'm pro-economic growth and economic development, but that isn't that cannot be in the absence of having public safety plans, environmental protection plans, understanding economic benefits. So this is not a conversation about all or nothing. This is a conversation about balance. So look, I would encourage the conversation about those types of economic opportunities, but we'll also want to ensure that we have the appropriate public safety and plans in place. We understand the economic benefits, and the city's ability to sustain itself and pay its bills is also incredibly important, so that we can deliver a quality of life to our citizens. And I would say we cannot have a norm being explosions and leaks and other impacts that we've seen in our city over the last couple of years. We've got to get a handle on this, and I'm quite confident that our industrial leaders in this community are going to want to wrestle this to the ground with us, and they're going to want to have the city of St. John and its citizens and its leadership satisfied. So before I and I'm not suggesting there's a problem, we need to have these conversations, though, and if there are gaps, we need to address them.
Okay, Mayor Darling, I thank you very much for taking the time, and we wish you good luck, and wish you good luck in establishing that bigger dialogue as you called for. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. Take care.